Hello and welcome to the show tonight. I am your host, CJ Lester, and tonight I have joining with me Mr. Joel Singleton. Hey, how you doing, sir? Uh, Can't hear you. Hold on one second. Let me try to adjust that. Try it now. Are you on mute? Mm-mm. Nope. Let's see. Hold on one second, folks. Mm-mm. I'm gonna kick you out and bring you back in. Hold on one second, folks. We'll be right back. All right, let's try this again. There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear
That's
you. Can you
better.
hear me? All
Yep.
right. Good deal.
All right. So you lead worship at Rutledge Baptist Church. So tell us a little bit about that, how you got there, and where you got started in music ministry for us.
Yeah, sure thing. So I've been at Rutledge Baptist as the associate pastor and music minister since May of 2017. I first went there as an interim from May until that officially that December, that January, they called me officially. So January of 2018. But I actually served there out of college back in January of 2000 and served there about 3.5 years. And then we served in Conyers at church for about 8 years, North Rockdale Baptist. And then did some, I did some fill-in, some interim work for several years. And then 17, God led us to Rutledge. And so, yeah, it's been good. That's what I do. I tell people that's what I do part-time. Of course, church, whether you're part-time or full-time, is full-time. But I teach high school choir full-time at Monroe Area High School in Monroe. So music, I've always done it. It's always been a part of my life. My parents were very musical and always sang in church and church choir. And so I'm the grandson of a pastor and longtime preacher, a lot of preachers in my family. And so ministry is just, obviously the relationship with the Lord is first, but ministry comes with that. And so, yeah, it's just been a lifetime of it.
And how I met you was at Salem Campground. You became the director of that. So how did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so, I've always known of Salem Camp Meeting, knew of it growing up. It usually took place when our church would have revival in the summer, so it's not something I was ever able to attend, but had a lot of friends growing up in school that did. Of course, I grew up Baptist, and it was traditionally Methodist. Now it's more non-denominational, but still rooted in the Methodist faith and denomination and traditions and those things. But, just had a lot of friends going there. And so back in the spring, there was a need in the music area, and several folks from the board and involved with Salem Camp Meeting reached out, and one thing led to another, and I was able to go and lead this summer, and I've been asked back next summer, and I'm really excited about that now that I know what it all is and know everybody. My family, we had a great time. My kids, they thought it was the greatest thing ever. Where else can you go? Have church in the morning, church service in the evening, ride your bikes all day, play games, get wet, get messy, eat great food. So it was a good time.
And have ice cream after the service, right?
That's the best. That's right.
Right. So how do you prepare spiritually and mentally to lead worship each week?
Goodness. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, every week, a lot of people like to traditionally through the years, a lot of music ministers and worship pastors have liked to, work hand in hand with their pastors and try to maybe use a theme for the music, whether it's traditional music, contemporary music. That's not really the issue so much as just, maybe text, scripture text or topic text, things like that. I've never really been one to do that. I've always worked bivocationally. So pastor and I've only worked with a couple of gentlemen who were full-time pastors. And so a lot of times the people I was working alongside in ministry have been bivocational. That's the case now. But it's always something where I really believe in that scripture says, be still and know. that I am the Lord. And so the be still and know is something I've always taken to heart as a music minister and as a when I preach and as a pastor, to listen. And so each week, when choosing, songs, hymns, so forth for both congregation and choir, I've always tried to just, allow God to lead that. And typically they just kind of weave together. I like to try to keep some of the same concepts. There might be some Sundays or certain services where I might do more of a gospel feel, whether it's I'll Fly Away or something like that. It kind of go all songs kind of in that vein, or maybe more. This song's going to be a lot about great is the glory of the Lord and praise this week. And some weeks, I just feel like it's always pointing to Him. That should always be first and foremost for me. And so I always try to pray that God would guide my heart in that fashion. But so it's always been a blessing. What I was going to say, I said all that to say this, working by vocation with the pastors I have, it's amazing every week, whether it's one of the songs we sing congregationally or all the songs, or if it's the choir special, or if it's the special singer or special singers for that morning, or something the pianist plays. Every week it seems to weave right into the pastor getting up and his opening topic or his scripture or something. And so for me, I've always just really believed that if I let God guide that, even without having, and there's times that we'll have conversation, through the years I've had, pastors I've worked with that'll say, hey, Joel, I'm thinking about this for Sunday, just give you a heads up, choose what you want to, but just let maybe to kind of help lead me in a certain direction or help make it easier. But I've just always been blessed. And I just feel like that's, I'm not going to call it an anointing. I know God does anoint us, but I really feel like it's something that God leads in. And, I've never had somebody come to me. This is year 25 I'm finishing since I first started music ministry. And I've never had someone come to me and say, Joel, the music this morning was terrible. That they may have thought that. They've just never said that. And so I'm thankful for that for sure.
Yeah. You answered one of the questions already about how you balance the traditional hymns with contemporary worship music. So can you elaborate just a little bit more on that, how you do that? And because that's a big issue, I think, with churches now doing that.
Right. It is. And, every church is different. And so many people, I make no bones about it. I grew up a gospel music. Of course, when we say gospel, most people think, Negro spirituals, African gospel, Black gospel. But there's so many different types of genres just within gospel music. But for me, I grew up in something known as singing conventions, where people would go from, miles around, from different states and gather together at a church or someone's fellowship hall or sometimes someone's house and get together and would break out songbooks and have somebody that played, or maybe you did a cappella and you sing and just kind of worship that way. But the church I grew up in Loganville, Georgia, Old Zora Missionary Baptist Church, we were what's called a redback church, a redback hymnal, and those hymnals are actually from the church, published by the Church of God. But it has all those gospel convention style songs. So that's kind of what I grew up on. And then of course hymns woven in throughout church. And then, just through my ministry, branching out, doing more with my choir background and so forth. So for me, where I am now and currently, what I like to do, our hymns are fairly traditional. There are some praise and worship songs we work in. We're not full contemporary. That's not something we'll ever really do, at least not this stage, just because, you have to know your church. You have to know your people. So often I've heard people, I had somebody many years ago, I was doing something at church and someone asked me a question, said, so can we do this style of music and this and this and this? And I said, okay. I said, well, who wants to, which one of you is going to fire the pianist? They looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, well, to do what you're asking to be done, we're going to have to add keyboard, we have to add this guitar and drums and this. And I said, and so who's going to go to the deacons and ask permission for all these, and who's going to fire the pianist? They said, why can't we keep the pianist? I said, well, that's not what they play. And as a musician, people like to say, well, good musicians can play anything. That's true to an extent, but there's also our comfort zones as musicians. And, I can lead a contemporary hymn and sing it fine, have no problem. I can lead a regular hymn, sing that fine, what's considered an older traditional hymn. But, all songs at some point were new. And so being able to do them and do them well, I think that's most important. And I just really think as long as you're worshiping with whatever style music you do, I think that's key, because we get caught up in, worship wars I've heard through the years. I've luckily not been involved in them. People have had conversations, and I am on the traditional side, just because of the value, from the value of text, the value of scripture that we learn, and value. And again, not all traditional music or what we call hymns or so forth are good lyrically, are good theologically, and are good scripturally. And so we have to be clear, careful and stay clear of those as well. I think that can be said for any style of music. One thing I try to do is I try to blend a lot through our choir music and through a lot of our specials. I try to have somebody, it's not always, but usually once a month. We have a lot of folks in our church that are wonderful soloists and sing in small groups, duets, trios, and they sing fairly regularly, whether it's once a month or every other month. But then I try to at least every month or every 6 weeks have someone outside of our church come in. And you can ask anybody that's ever come in, I always tell them, you're welcome to sing anything you feel led to sing, within reason, unless, if they want to start jumping off the walls. That might be a little much for us, but I've always wanted to grant them that freedom, and also the ability to worship freely and bring who they are and bring who God has made them, to our worship service. I had a good friend of mine from high school this Sunday. He's written some of his own stuff. He's a local guy, Scott Peacock. I'll give him a little plug there. Yeah.
I interviewed him. So.
Yeah, you did, yeah. So Scott and I wrote together, and he's got a heart for the Lord, and God's really blessing him right now in his music. And he did some stuff Sunday. It's just great, and our people love it. And I just think that's important. I think every church, I think a lot of churches that tend to be more on the maybe all contemporary, bring somebody in sometimes that sings something different, whether it's gospel, whether it's arrangements of hymns, just different styles, whether it's maybe a bluegrass or country gospel. I love you get the right folks that all those that they I've always finding someone who's passionate about what they do and they're good at what they do, regardless of style. It's always good.
Yeah. And so with talking about all this, so what role do you believe worship music plays, and depending on the congregation and connection with God?
That's a great question. I think music, I think we find this in the scriptures with, singing praises to the Lord, and, I will sing unto the Lord a new song. I just think that we open that space for hearts to open. I think, and I say we as singers, I don't mean we like me and, the instrumentalist or the praise band or worship team. I think sometimes that's where things get a little confusing. The we as worshipers, me and anybody in the audience, everybody in the congregation, we're all there together. And I think, that music helps bring peace of mind, helps clear the mind, helps, our heart get stirred a little bit. And so, and I think when that pastor, minister gets in the pulpit, or, if it's devotion time, whatever they're doing, Sunday school even, I've got some friends that they always have music or will have somebody sing a song before they start Sunday school, which I think is really cool. And so with that, I think that it just evokes that presence. It allows the Holy Spirit to flow. You don't have to sing at all, and you can have a worship service, but I just think it really opens up the hearts. And I know as a preacher, when I get up to preach, if it's been a great music service, whether it's a lyric, I mentioned earlier about, with my pastor, whether it's a lyric or something that goes, to me, it just opens up the heart. And I think if it does it for me, I know it has to do it for others, because people express that. And so I think it goes hand in hand.
And so you talked about your convention bringing up. You got one coming up in October. You want to talk a little bit about that, and how what inspired you to lead a gospel singing convention, and how was it involved over the years, or how long have you been doing it?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I grew up with my parents, Jimmy and Pat Singleton. They live there in the Conyers area, still always have, still do. They took us to convention singing as growing up, just something they had done. They got involved in and dated doing that. And my dad had always sung. My mom had always sung at her church, and he'd sung at his church different styles of worship music, but got married. And this is something that they found some common ground on, so to speak, and they both enjoyed it, and they always took us. And, I've been to many states I've been to. The only reason I went was for music. It wasn't for a vacation. It wasn't, for work. It's all been, music led. And so I've always done these. And so the Georgia State Gospel Singing Convention is far much older than Joel. Started early 1900s. This is the 97th year. And so we did not have one during 2020 for COVID. Obviously, we did have what they called a fall sing, and we let whomever wanted to come. My sister Julie was actually in charge of that. I actually didn't get to go that year, unfortunately, but we still had a singing in that place. But it's always traditionally been in October, typically the second weekend. And so last year, we needed a president for the next year. We try to elect somebody each year for the next year. So we have a board that comes together, and that board is made up of past presidents. what we call an executive committee, and we also have delegates each year from different counties in Georgia. And we're not the only state that does this. Alabama does this, Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Texas. It goes. Lots of states have this. Some states used to have it. That no longer. South Carolina used to have a great one, and a lot of people just passed away or moved away, and they don't have one now. But long story short, I was asked to be in charge of it, and so I kind of stepped up, and at our meeting and said, hey, I'd like to take it for 2024 and bring it to Morgan County, Georgia. It's never been in Morgan County. It's never been in Rutledge. It's never been other than Augusta a couple of times. It's never been east where we're having. Yeah, it's been north.
I think I've seen it mostly in North Georgia and
yes, mostly North Georgia. And so it used to be. It's been in America several times. It's been in the Macon area and some other places. It's never been in Rutledge. So I'm excited. I tell people, if you can get through the mess that is Atlanta, coming out of Atlanta, east on I-20, it should get less and less. And that's my prayer. I'm praying for safe traffic and no wrecks on Friday, the 4th of October and Saturday, the 5th of October.
There you go. And so how do you maintain a sense of tradition while incorporating, or if it does have modern gospel influence at the convention?
Well, the convention's pretty much, we call it shape note singing. There's two types of that. There's what they call fa, sol, la singing, or sacred harp, which had do, fa, sol, and la, those shapes, or those syllables, so to speak, solfege syllables, what they're known as. Then you have the 7-note shapes, which is the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Most people are familiar with that through, our wonderful friend in The Sound of Music, when she would sing Do, a deer, and that kind of thing. But we use that with our songs. And so any song of any genre can be put into shapes. As a public school music teacher, I teach sight reading and songs on solfege syllables, singing do, re, mi, fa, sol, like that. But we're singing all round notes on lines of spaces. But those same lines of spaces are what we use in shape note singing. But this is a tradition kind of its own. So every year we have brand new songs written. So technically they are, I guess you would call contemporary, because they're contemporary to our time. And you can tell through the years the different sound of our music. Even now, you can look through a songbook. It has multiple songs, 100 plus songs in it. And you're going to have 10 to 20 that sound almost identical. Different words, different keys, but very similar in the style. You're going to have 5 or 6 that sound very different. And you think, okay, that's not what we're used to. And whether it may be more contemporary or just different altogether. And then you're going to have a lot of those that are going to have, I would say, maybe a chorus or maybe a the verse itself that have 2 different kind of styles, and then they kind of merge them. A lot of songs that might start off with the chorus, then go into a verse, then go into the chorus, very similar to the stylings of contemporary hymns and those kind of things. And so I think it meshes well. We have several publishers throughout the Southeast that edit and publish these songbooks and these songs. And I think we got a great collection. There's a lot of great writers. People think about Fanny Crosby that wrote, countless hymns. Blessed Assurance is my favorite, and that list would go on and on if I started naming songs. And you think of people like her, but just in our genre of singing conventions, we have writers like that. One's passed just a few years ago named Wayne Guffey, and anybody that, if you say, oh, that's a Guffey song, they all know. And he had a certain style with triplets and fast rhythms, really cool lyricist. He was a guitar player. He wasn't a piano player. He was a guitar player. And so you can feel that, and you can hear that in songs that he wrote, being more guitar driven, what we would call rhythm driven, like a rhythm section. And there's so many writers like that have written just hundreds upon hundreds of songs within our genre. I'm a songwriter, but my genre, I'm not in the hundreds. I'm in the, I'm still in probably around the 20s. And so, something I enjoy to do, but we have some folks in our convention arena that they're something else.
I hope Tracy Phillips, is she around in your
Tracy Phillips? Yeah, Tracy. Okay.
I don't know her, but I would like to meet her and interview her as well.
Tracy's great. Tracy is a longtime friend. She's known me my whole life. She's a few years ahead of me, but I've known her my whole life. Obviously, she was a music theory teacher for me several summers growing up at summer music school. And music camp at Truett McConnell College used to be a camp there called the North Georgia School of Gospel Music. It still exists, and a little different setup now, but it still exists, and there's a lot of singing schools like that. But yeah, Tracy, she's a fabulous pianist. In our genre of convention singing, You don't ever want to say, oh, he's the best, she's the best, but
Right.
you'd be hard pressed to find anybody better.
Yeah, she's one of the best. I love to hear her play.
Yeah,
And
she's great.
so you mentioned to me before that there's two different conventions. Can you kind of elaborate on the different ones, like the one in Alabama they have?
Right. Okay. So, for example, the Alabama State Convention, they'll meet in November. So we meet in October. They meet November. Tennessee State just happened 2 weeks ago, September 7th. I actually didn't get to go. I had a wedding ceremony to perform. So my wife and her cousin went in my place to represent Georgia. But they run all the same way, basically the way state conventions work. So you have singing conventions that happen somewhere every weekend, whether it's, Georgia, maybe not somewhere every weekend, but most weeks. In other states, the same way, you might have what they call singing classes. We have some in Georgia that meet on Monday nights, some that meet on Thursday nights. We've had some on Friday nights through the years, some that meet once a month, some meet every week. But they'll basically be led by one person, a chairman or a host person, and they'll just call on and say, hey, CJ, you're directing next, and you would pick out a song from a songbook and get up and tell everybody, hey, everybody turn to page 24, and we'd all turn to 24. The pianist plays it, we sing it. A state convention is going to have that, but it's going to be more I don't want to use the word structure, but it's going to be more formal as far as how it goes. So, for example, what people will see when they come to our convention, Alabama, Tennessee, all the other states are the same way as the beginning. Your officers, myself and my convention officers, will direct the first song and open it up. And then after that, you will have past presidents of each state does that. Anybody, from any age, any year, any decade that's been a president for will get up and lead together a song. Everybody sings, but they lead. And then you'll have your publishers that publish the songbooks that are there. And right now we have 4 or 5. It depends, which convention you go to that are active. Usually most of them are going to have 3 or 4 there. We have some publishers that have gone out the last couple of years. I've been involved with one of them. Just things happen, but they'll direct by publishers, and then we will start going by counties through Georgia. We'll start top of the alphabet and go. So anybody that's there so our registration that we have, they don't register as far as paying or anything like that. They just put their name on a card and their county, and they'll direct or sing a special, play piano, that kind of thing. So we have an idea of who's there, and we have people that organize that. And, and I'll call out counties, and then I'll mix in states that are there. So I know, people that have told me they're come to our state convention in a few weeks. We'll have people from Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, maybe Kentucky. So if all the people that say, hey, I'm hoping to come, we could have, essentially 9 or 10 states represented, and all the state conventions run that way. And so Friday night, we'll just sing through. We'll try to get through everybody between 7 and 9. We'll have refreshments afterwards. On Saturday, we'll come back. We'll do it all again. Very similar style. We'll also mix in specials. If we have some people there that might sing a solo, we'll have, we've got a lot of awesome pianists. You mentioned Trace. We got her and so many pianists that'll be a part of this. So some of our specials, like our offerings and that kind of thing that we'll do, they'll play, and it's just a fun time. It's hard. It's really kind of hard to describe. It's a lot of fun. I've been telling my church, we had a hymn sing back in March, and I kind of did it to get them prepared for the state convention, because it's one thing for me to tell them what we're doing. It's one thing for have a family quartet. We've come and, they've been there, but we've sung many times. I have groups I bring in that are similar, but we did a hymn sing to kind of show what it was going to be like. I had multiple pianists. I had 2 pianos going. We'll have 2 pianos going at this convention. And so as songs changed that night, the hymn sing, I kind of directed the whole thing. I would have some other people participate, but I kind of led everything and had some others kind of filter in and out. But our pianist just rotated, and it'll be the same way at the state convention. And so I told our church that was kind of a little taste, and they loved that. They said, we do this next week and every week. I said, well, one, it's a lot of work. But I told them last week, I said, if you love the hymn sing, we had about 100 for that. That was on a Saturday night back in March. We're going to do that again in 2025. But I said, it's going to be like that. I said, but imagine that on steroids. And then I apologized to the Lord. I said, Lord, sorry, I talked about steroids in church. But anyway, we had a good laugh about it. But it's going to be like that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, because this will be my first. I've been wanting to go to one, so that I'll be going there.
Yeah.
And
it's a good one to do. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And also our church does a hymn sing. So if I get information about that, I'll pass it on to you. And I'm sure they'd love to have y'all. So Conyers Methodist. So yeah. Any other information you want to give about the convention? If people
Well, I just want to tell anybody that, that tunes in, listens. So Friday, October 4th, 7 p.m. Saturday, October 5th, starts at 10:30 a.m. That's Rutledge Baptist Church, 112 West Main Street, Rutledge, Georgia. You can go to my Facebook page under Joel Singleton. Friend me if you're not my friend, but you can like it. And I've got a convention group page called 2024 Georgia State Gospel Singing Convention. I try to make it real simple for folks to find that. But yeah, just check it out. And we'd love to have you. And if you can't come, we're going to live stream as well. The plan is to do that through our church page, Rutledge Baptist. But if something happens and you don't see it through our church page, we've actually our camera died recently, so we just had to ship it off this week to get a new camera. But we should hopefully have that in time in 2 weeks to get that going. If not, I'll probably stream either through my page or I'll have a friend's page up and running. If I do that, you can find that page from my page. So anyway, we're excited about it. But yeah, would love to have people come and just share this music, because people always say the phrase, we kind of laugh in our little group. People always say, "Oh, I remember when they used to have these in the old days, and my mama and daddy or my grandpa used to go to this." We still have it, and it's still fresh. It's new people doing it. It's not. It's you'll see every age. My kids are 6 and 8. They're with me all the time, and there's other kids that age. And these summer singing schools I mentioned, you'll have anywhere from 50 to 200 attendees every summer at all of these different schools. And that's another topic for another day. They happen everywhere. But it's still alive and well, and it's a great way. Even if you go to a church that's contemporary, or a church that's just traditional, just does hymns or whatever, you're like, this is kind of different. It teaches you music, teaches you sight reading, and at the end of the day, we're just praising Jesus, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like about it, that it teaches you how to read kind of the music that you're learning.
It does. So, absolutely.
Yeah, because I hear that often when I'm in choir at Conyers Methodist, that they don't read music. Well, come to this, and you'll learn how to read music.
I can never state that and second that enough. As a music teacher, and my choir, bless their hearts, and I'm probably not as tough on them as I'd like to be sometimes. I know I'm not, because they're volunteers, and my kids are volunteers too, but they do sign up for the class. They get a grade. My church choir does it, but they definitely get music direction and leading from me from a music education standpoint, ministry as well. But I think if your heart's right, the ministry part's there. But music education, I try to teach them the value of reading. I always tell my church choir, my students, music literacy. It's just like reading a book. You want to know it and understand. It's like reading the Bible. And so for music, the more you can understand, because to me, there's so much value in. I know so many musicians, you do as well, that they can sing anything, but they don't know what they're singing. They can play anything. They don't know what they're playing. And there's and I'm jealous of many of them. I'm jealous of a lot of people. Someone sits down at the piano, got family members that can sit down at the piano and they can hear something, just sit down and play it. I can sit there, and if I listen to it 25 times, maybe a few less or a few more, I can pick out the melody. I'm not that I can pick out the bass line. Eventually I can figure out all the parts, but that's just hours where they can sit down and do it. But I can save hours, because if you show me the sheet music to it, I can sit down and play it and sing it. So, I think they go, again, I've used the phrase hand in hand. I think so much of what we do is there's that value. And I try to tell singers all the time. I'll share the story before we go. Got a friend that grew up in church, a sister church, we call it, brother church, not far from us, that did the same kind of music. And she had an opportunity some years ago when Rosa Parks passed away. She got to play at Rosa Parks' funeral. Did not know Rosa Parks, knew nothing about her, was not African American, but she would happen to be in the right place, right time. She was in college over in Troy, Alabama, at Troy University. And I won't go into the whole story, but basically there was a choir that was asked to sing, had some music they needed to sing that had been requested, and the director needed someone that could read that music, and contacted somebody. They got in touch with her, said, "Hey, can you read this?" Sits down, plays at the piano, and next day playing for Rosa Parks' funeral. And I've used that story time and again, because you never know the opportunity that's going to present itself when you can read music. And so, it's a lot of value in it.
Yeah. Like with the sheet music, I play by chords. So that's more contemporary, but you can still do a Southern gospel song with that. So
you can, and what people do from chords, they do what they call fills or runs. And all that is taking a chord, example C, E, G. And, if that's what you're playing on that C chord, anything you play within that key, that fits into that chord, you can play, we like to think chords in left hand as musicians, and your fills and runs in the right hand, but again, you can use both. And you can make the music as thick or as full as you want, or as thin and as light as you want.
All right.
So and
Yeah,
it gives everybody a chance to participate.
right. And I think I play more rhythm. I've come to find out. So on a piano, but
yeah, and that's okay because
Mhm.
hey, you mentioned Tracy earlier. Tracy's gonna. I
Mhm.
mean, if you close your eyes and you listen to someone of Tracy's stature and of her professionalism and her her skill set as a pianist, you can close your eyes and you're like, man,
Yeah.
how many hands are playing the piano right now? And you can hear if you listen to there's a lot of pianists. There's one from Habersham County named Ruth Stewart, and I've always felt
Okay.
like I'm hearing a band play in like a bass guitar or drum when I hear Ruth play, because that's just
Mhm.
it's in her, it's in her soul, and so every pianist has their own style, but so many, and I don't want to name drop because I'll leave people out, but there's so many people just in Georgia that are amazing, and we're going to have
Right.
a lot of them are going to be at the convention. Some of them can't because of the time of the year, but
Mhm.
the ones that are there, people that come, they're going to hear some really great piano playing.
Yeah. And so again, I look forward to it, and I hope people here that watch this later. Not a lot of
Yeah,
people on here now, but it will replay and
yeah.
get more views. So once it's off, you can share it to your people, and it will be there. So
Hey,
I look
thank you,
forward to
CJ.
seeing you.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you
Yeah.
for asking. This is great.
Mhm.
Anytime I can sit down and talk with a friend about music and
Yeah.
Jesus and church and all those things, it's easy. As what
And
they all say, the easiest Sunday morning. So
oh yeah.
it's good stuff.
And
So
sign me up for a solo, why don't you?
there you go. All
There
right,
you go.
CJ. God bless you, brother. Yes,
All
sir.
right. You have a nice night.
You too.